everybody, so my name's Sarah and this is my first Flosstube. I meant to do one years ago, but life gets in the way and then you spend years on Zoom because of lockdown and you think, bugger it, I'll do it. So welcome to my channel. Hello to everybody that is interested in cross stitch and sewing and kind of little bits of everything else in between, a bit of life, a bit of kind of what's going on in this part of the world. So I'm from sunny Manchester in the UK, and I have been cross stitching now for about 7-8 years full on, but I'll explain that a little bit more later if you don't get too bored by them. I hope you find the first Flosstube really good. I've love some feedback on how you've come across the video and what I could do to get a bit better at giving you what you want to watch, because I know I watch so much Flosstube, it's ridiculous, and it really motivates me to sew and to get on with things, and I love seeing everybody's progress, and I'll do a few shout outs later, but yeah, so hello. So I thought I'd pause the video regularly because I've never edited a video before, and I've just downloaded some software, and I figured if I put each clip up then I know what I'm doing. So it might be a bit hit and miss this first one, and I'll try and make sure there's words on the screen so you know which patterns I'm referring to and things, because I might rush and so yeah, welcome to Flosstube number 1. It is the 5th of October today. It is rainy, really rainy. My husband's took the kids off to Nana's over in Yorkshire. We live in Rochdale, so it's kind of like an hour's trip really. And they go and spend the night at Nana's and get lots of cuddles and attention, and I get to get some work done. Or I get to mess around and do a Flosstube and avoid doing my work. So, we'll see. What do I need to tell you about myself? So, yeah, my name's Sarah, and I love cross stitch. I think cross stitch gives me a real kind of hobby that takes my mind away from the daily routines and daily kind of I don't know, the daily kind of routine of life really, and it gives me an outlay, and it allows me to kind of have a bit of me time every day. I try and do some sewing every day, but I do tend to focus on quite big projects, so I don't have very many finishes in a year. I don't do full coverage very often. I find that my backs end up really messy and my stitching's just here, there and everywhere, so I tend to focus mainly on like kind of Quake and modern samplers, but I do little bits of this and that in between. So I should probably show you a few of my finishes, a couple of older ones, but I've finished quite a lot of projects this year, and I use this book, this cross stitch planner. Sorry about the reflection, and I've got a bit of reflection on my glasses as well, but I use this cross stitch planner that my husband created, and I started using it back in February, so I list what I'm working on and how many projects I've got through. But if I look at my finishes for this year, it's quite a few. I don't know if it'll be back to front either, so I'll work that bit out after, but I've had 10 finishes so far, and that's not bad for me. So average is about 1 a month, but I'm working on some big pieces that I hope to finish by the end of this year, clear the decks, finish all my whips, and then start a load more, because this is a vicious cycle that we're all in of wanting to start everything that we think is pretty or beautiful. And yeah, so some of my older finishes, I did a lot of patterns by Tempting Tangles, so they were like 16 week projects and you get a little square every week and you'd work on it. So I did quite a few and finished them and give them away as gifts, but I kept one because I personalised it for our house, but it's got a bit tatty over the years because it was framed and then we had a leak, and then yeah, I've just put it in a box. But this is my kind of style really. This is the only sampler I've ever done with a house on it. This house put me off houses for life, so I tend to not do samplers where there's a house. I avoid them. But I really love this. And this is called Welcome Home by Tempting Tangles. I used to do a lot of sewing on 14 count Ada, and I think it's still a preference that I have because you just know where you stand with it. So I get loads done on 14 count and I find it quite quick and everything stitches up quite nice and straight. And however, this year I've moved to the dark side. I've moved to linen a little bit, but I'll show you that in a minute. So that's that one. The other one is similar actually, but this one is William Morris pattern, and I did this as a stitch along that you share with other people, so everybody does a bit of, I can't remember what they're called, but you pass them along. So you do a corner, somebody else does it, somebody else, and it gets returned to you at the end. Round robin, there you go, round robin. And I used to do quite a few round robins, but what I found is like 2-3 times mine's gone missing in the post. So everybody's got their pieces and I'm left with nothing after lots of kind of hard work really on other people's. And it's not a critique of them, it's just, it's disheartening when things go missing in the post. So I don't really get involved in them anymore. But I remember this one because we were supposed to put our initials in the circle, in the flowers, but a couple of people didn't. So I can't actually remember, apart from one person that I worked with it on, who I did it with, but I did it about 2-3 years ago. And that's piece be in this house, and it's just 2 lovely little doves and lots of kind of really nice little flowers. I just really kind of like this style really, and I picked out the green because some Irish heritage somewhere along the line, and it just jumped out at me really. So it probably wasn't called for colours, I probably just picked out from stash for that one, but I love that. Okay, my other finish was another Tempting Tangles, and this was Easter. Now I don't know why I ever did this because I don't put up seasonal stitching at all. But it was about Easter time, and it was bright and colourful and cheerful, and I'm not ever sure really what to do with it. Anyway, I picked this awful fabric for it, and it's just in the drawer. I don't know what to do with it, but that's Happy Easter. And can you see, I don't know, the metallic in the fabric. I did properly iron them once upon a time, but because they've been folded and stored away for so long, they've got all these lovely wrinkles in them. But it means they fit back in the box, I suppose. Okay, so this year I've finished 10 different things, which I'm really proud of, and like I said, I'm working on some big things at the minute, so they'll get finished by December. That's my goal. But there's a bit of a story. So I was doing a pattern with some friends at our local stitchy club called Rochdale and Stitches, and we were all working off a calendar that was free with the magazine. So we were doing each pattern. It was by Joanne Jones. Each pattern each month, and everyone was making it into scissor fobs and kind of beautiful little ornate cushions and biscarnus and needle cases and all of that. Anyway, I'm not a fancy stitcher. I'm really not. So I tend to just sew flat, if that makes sense. Once they're done, they tend to be framed flatly, if that makes sense. I don't really make them into things. So what I did, I decided to work on making it into a sampler. and I'll show you in a little while. And so I got my husband to chart them all up, and to make it fit we added a couple extra things in from Joanne Jones, and this big border and a stitchy quote. Anyway, my husband got some software and created it for me, and it was brilliant. And I started it. I fell a little bit behind with it, and I'll show you why in a minute. But he created it back in January when everybody was starting theirs. But what that meant was that all of a sudden he was designing and designing and designing lots of things. So we currently run a cross-stitch design company, if you can call it that, over on Etsy, and we've got our own website as well, so Craven House Design. And his designs are beautiful, and they're very much to my taste. And I think he's just got an eye for kind of geometric, Quaker, symmetry. It all kind of just big ticks for me. But of course some of our friends like them, they start selling, and then we opened our Etsy shop. Now we don't do great and we don't sell lots of patterns, but, and this video isn't to get them patterns out there, but they are beautiful and I really do like working on them. And so this year I've finished, I think I did 18 of these. He created a hoop set, and we were going to create it into a booklet. We've not got round to that yet because I was doing the model stitching for them. So I did 18 of these little hoops, and they really kind of lovely geometric designs. Squirrel. So this one, this bee, is where it all started really. So he charted this up for me, just this bee, because I wanted to make a little badge, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Anyway, it came to this. We got a lot of different various sizes of the patterns that we do, and one of my other friends model stitched the smaller band samplers for us. So each one like has a hoop, has a band, has a big sampler, just because people like to stitch different sizes. And so whilst I like huge big things, some people don't have the time or skill or money really to do big ones, so we try to do small, medium and big if you like. So my friend did these ones for us. They're not framed yet. I'm got to take quite a bit to the framers, but you can see how they correspond well with each other, and you can change the colours, mix them up. This one's the bird one. This one's Snail's Time. I think it's quite ironic really, snails just potter around. And then Squirrel Has Nuts. Again, there's that line of like symmetry to them, and this would make that quite a nice cute little needle book, or a backing for a project bag, or a small pillow. So I've made a few pillows, and they do really well with that. But that's what he designs, and I love them. So whilst my friend was working on them, and after I'd finished the hoops, I started Ode to Pratchett. Now, my husband is a massive Terry Pratchett fan, and I'm a massive sampler fan and black work. So we kind of combined the two, and he came up with Ode to Pratchett. An ode being as in a memorial piece, because unfortunately Terry Pratchett's no longer with us, but he's left a big mark on my husband, and he's full of Terry Pratchett tattoos and that kind of thing. So it was nice to be able to sew something meaningful for him, but something that it just screamed me. So this was my first ever piece on linen, and I chose 36 count Belfast linen. and it's absolutely beautiful fabric, lovely and soft, and but oh my god, it was hard work. And the stitches were diddy because I've jumped from like big stitches on 14 count and whizzing them out to really diddy stitches. So this is about 30,000 stitches. So it's quite a, I don't know, medium to large kind of project to undertake. But I think it looks beautiful, and it is my favourite thing that I've made this year. So I'll bring you up a bit close. And these alphabets took so long, but the stitch, I couldn't believe when you compare them, I don't know if you can see that, when you compare them, the difference and how much more you can fit on. And what I really liked about it is it kind of taught me that I thought you'd lose a bit of detail the smaller you got, in a way. And I've always done big samplers, but I just love it, and it feels so nice, and it's really tactile and really symmetrical. And I stitch it using DMC 310, which is my go-to colour for everything, but I love it, absolutely love it. But what I like about it as well is that you could pull out individual motifs and maybe make a little matching scissor fob or pin cushion or something like that. But I was really proud of this, so I worked on that probably June and July. It was quite stitch intensive really, so once I picked it up I didn't really put it down until it was finished, which is how I like to sew. But stupid me takes on loads of stitch alongs, so I feel like I have to put stuff down to keep up with the stitch alongs, and then I tend not to pick them back up again. But I was dead strict with myself with that one. But anyway, I love it. I like touching it as well, which I probably shouldn't, but that one's next to go to the framers with the other ones, so that at least, because the idea is hopefully maybe we can get to a few kind of local markets and start kind of displaying our stuff and selling kits really. But grand plans, we can work on that when we've got some time. My next big finish this year was the 2020 Family and Friends sampler by Fox and Rabbit. So I did their first sampler a few years ago, a big band sampler, and it's at the top of my stairs, and I loved it. But I said to myself it was so kind of heavy going, finishing it every month and making sure I kept up to date with it, that I'd skip the year after and I'd do the one after that. So I'd do it every 2 years if they kept up with it. Anyway, they do, and they release one every year, and it's an amazing gift to us stitchers because they're beautiful patterns and such a massive community, and you always feel really supported on the Facebook page and when you're putting updates and things like that. So this year, January, I thought, right, I'll do this year's and 2020 alongside each other. So I'll do the January and February and February. Anyway, I kind of got that into it that I finished this one. Now, I used pearl cotton for the first time ever, and my first time ever on black Ada. And you're not wrong, it is a nightmare to see, so I kind of did it during the daytime if I could, but I have a finish and I love this. As you can see, black, white, my thing. But my husband, again, he got involved and designed the border for me, And I think it just squares it off really, really nicely. There was nothing wrong with the original pattern. I just really like borders. I like things to kind of box off. And so when it's kind of open, if you imagine taking the border off, it felt a bit unfinished for me. And I was happy without the border. But I quite like repetitive stitching as well. And once I'm into a pattern, I quite like that process of not having to look at a pattern and just kind of sew freehand. So this stitched up really quickly. I did this during September this year, so it's not that long ago. Finished quite a lot in September. Finished that on the 1st of September. But again, love it. So then after that, what happened was I started I don't want to show you my whips just yet because I've got a few, but I started the Owl Forest stitch along. I'd seen it advertised on Facebook and I started that stitch along. And I just really like the pattern. I boo-booed on it, which I'll show you. But what it meant was I went out, added to the big, huge load of patterns that I'll never stitch in my lifetime pile. And I added red cardinals because my husband, although we're British, he's always kind of been into his baseball and he supports the St. Louis Cardinals baseball team. So he watches every match and he sits there and he's like, oh, you know, the shouting at a TV screen malarkey. So I thought, you know what, I can't stand the colour red. I don't particularly like baseball. So instead of like stitching in the logo or something like that, I thought I would stitch Red Cardinals by Owl Forest Embroidery. Interestingly enough, after I'd done Pratchett, I've moved down to 18 count Ada. So if I do use Ada now, it's 18 count because I just love that it's a little bit more compact and I'm really running out of wall space. So when I do these big 14 count projects, they're massive. And when you do these little ones, they can find a home a bit more easily. Oh, don't know. My grammar's a bit. So that's that one. So I finished that in a week after I finished that in 6 days after I'd finished the Friends and Family sampler. And I was like, oh, addicted to it. So I had a little think about what I wanted to do next and I chose another Owl Forest one. But before I did that, I thought I'd break it up and do a small. I'm not getting any of my stitch alongs done. So I'll just do a small and it'll keep me motivated. So Lindy Stitches released a beautiful pattern. Now I really like a style, absolutely love it. But this one, just as soon as I saw it, I had to buy it. So I did. I changed a couple of the colours, so it called for kind of lots of nice overdyed. And anyway, I don't own any overdyed threads at all. I'm just standard DMC girl. And I quite like block colours. So I stitched, it's called Bury Me With My Needle, and it's by Lindy Stitches, and it is beautiful. It says, bury me with my needle, some linen in my hand, for I would not be idle when I reach the promised land. So I put it out on my Facebook. I'm like, you know what? These are my burial wishes, because I'm always happiest when I've just got needle, thread and some stitching. And hopefully I'll do it to my dying day. So I've kept the other half of the material. So I'm going to make it, I've ordered some fancy lace. So I'm going to make it into kind of a flat, boarded coffin shape, I think, pattern. I'm going to put it on the bathroom wall because I always think you need interesting things to read in the bathroom. So I have this wall in the bathroom that's full, a bit too full of sewing. So I finished that. Then I started another owl forest pattern, and I've literally just finished this on the 30th of September, so it is freshly washed. Still smells like fabric conditioner, but it's still a bit creased. But again, I moved down to 18 count Ada for this one, and I did it as part of Sampler September and Sampler Camp. So there is a stitcher here on Flosstube called Colorado Cross Stitcher, and she came up with this great idea that you pick a sampler, you work on it during September. You could have already started it, or it could be a new start, and you change a little bit of it. It can be anything. It can be the colours, you put in a motif, you move something, you make it more spaced, more condensed. You just adapt a little bit. So you don't have to go mental. But this was originally charted with like reds and greys, but I don't like reds. And oranges are our kind of family colour now. I love sunflowers and kind of bright, cheerful things. I've only put this up here to hide all the pots and pans in the kitchen because it's the only space that's light enough and bright enough to do anything video recording wise. So this is Southern Lands by Owl Forest Embroidery, and I have a finish. So all these oranges were supposed to be reds and a lighter red, so I just picked two oranges and I finished it. So you can see it's still really crinkly, but it's really beautiful. And of course, who doesn't love a husband who can overlock all your fabric for you in your family orange? So whatever I sew on has got this kind of overlocked bright orange edge. But it makes me happy, and you don't see it eventually anyway, so but it kind of matches. Again, it's a really nice square pattern, but it's quite floral, but it's got lots of symmetry to it, really kind of delicate flowers, a couple of butterflies, which aren't really my thing, but they work on this and that. So in terms of plans next year, Rick's working on, we were going to do a second Ode to Pratchett sampler, but we're going to do Ode to Taylor Hawkins sampler. So I'm going to do that, and it's going to be the same size as Pratchett. And I'm going to do the sister piece to this one, which is called Northern Lands, and I'm going to have all four framed at the same time. So that's why I've not finished them, because whenever I finish them too, I mean, I've done really well this year completing what I've completed, but there's no guarantee how much you'll get done. Life gets in the way, doesn't it? So I have intentions of finishing another two, and then I'll frame them all together and they'll look beautiful, and they're going to go on the upstairs wall as you walk into the bathroom. Just all my sewing seems to end up at that side of the house. But yeah, they're just some finishes from this year. A couple of old ones. So I did this doll ages and ages ago, and I hand sewed this kind of patchwork. I did split it into four and then cut round it and turned it inside out and put a hanger on it and a little button. It's a bit grubby. It needs a wash because it just hangs from my door knob, and I just find it quite cute. I can see where my stitching definitely got a lot neater than this, but as I'm sure you'll be able to tell, after you've seen a few of my, I hate backstitch, hate it. I just don't get on with it at all. I avoid it at all costs. So I was quite proud that I actually finished this and backstitched it, and I think it looks quite cute. So she lives in the bedroom. Then I did these, and I think they're Plum Street samplers, but I can't remember because I got them at a fair, like a craft fair in Manchester a few years ago, and I stitched them up on 18 count, no, it was 16 count Ada, and then I binned the patterns like you do when you don't know that there's still a bit of value in them, or you can pass them on. You're just like, oh, I'm done with that, and I bin it. But I do keep older stuff now. So this is the daily labours of the bee, and of course in Manchester, the bee, the humble bee that appears on a lot of my sewing, is a symbol of Manchester. And I think I went to work the day after the Manchester bombings, and you know, I worked in Manchester for 10 years. I'm from Manchester, and it's a meaningful kind of emblem of our city and how strong we stand and how we come back fighting when things happen, really. So the Manchester bee is really, really important to me, and maybe I'll try and insert a picture, but if I can't, I apologise, but I've got a big tattoo on the back of my back with a hoop and a bee and some scissors, and the proof of it, actually, that the tattooist sent me, is my logo on Instagram and YouTube, and it says Sarah Sews Summit. So of course, if you want to find me on Instagram, my personal sewing, you can find me at Sarah Sews Summit, because in Manchester we speak like that, Summit. Sarah Sews Summit. It makes sense to me, but yeah, the Manchester bee is quite important. So I love this, and it reminded me of my time of working in Manchester, helping folk. My background is I'm an independent social worker. So I work with, at the minute I'm doing a lot of work with foster carers, but I've done a lot of work with care leavers, people that have been looked after and moving on to independent living, really, and independent lives post 18. So that's my background. But of course the bee pops up everywhere in this beautiful fabric by, I think it was Jules Fabric. It's just these cute little bees, and of course when I do it once, I do it twice. But this one is my happy place, and again, I think you might have seen a link. Sunflowers, bees, black, white, kind of, yeah. Anyway, they're done. I'm trying to shift everything. I had this little frame, and I didn't know what to put in it, so of course I put these little bees. That's another finish. I don't really like doing small things. I just think they just kind of end up here, there and everywhere. I think this is okay size for me, and it hangs nicely in the bathroom. And I'm not very precious about my sewing. If I've worked on a piece and it's huge, it gets framed and it puts on the wall. But when it's something small like this, it gets flung around quite a lot, or put on the wall, and kind of, I don't think you can be too precious about some of the smaller things. So that's why I tend not to put things like this in frames, because I've not spent a long time on them. I tend to just frame the ones I'm biggest and proudest of. I went to an embroidery class with my friend Linda, and we learned how to make badges. So we did these, cockatoo and a bee, and I've got a couple more on my bag. But I think I'm really proud of myself this month, because I've done a lot of sewing. I've already had 5 finishes this month. Bury Me, Red Cardinals, Family and Friends, and the Sampler Camp badge from Colorado Cross Stitcher. So that's on my bag. My friend Linda as well, she keeps me in craft stuff. She got me this kit, and it's a wooden bobbin, and you make it into a pincushion. But obviously what's happened is all my little bees have ended up on it, and this lives in the bathroom. But I really like the idea of creating this. So I actually finished it and did it. I was quite proud of that as well. I also landed in Cross Stitch magazine. So if you subscribe to Cross Stitcher, you can read a bit more about me. But it was nice because what happened was we were doing the calendar stitch along, which is from that magazine, and I put a picture up of it. Anyway, then I did the elephant blanket, which I'll show you in a minute, for my daughter's birthday, and they contacted me and wanted some more information, so I just sent that across to them. And on it you can see like my living room wall is full of cross stitch, and I tend to do these big pieces. But what happened was I worked on this blanket. So I used to give all my cross stitch away. I never kept anything for myself. But when I started doing samplers, I really liked to keep them. And then I kind of want to start making stuff for other people again. But I don't know if people understand this, but not everybody understands the time and effort it takes to cross stitch. It's not a quick painting, or I'm not undervaluing them things, I'm just saying it's very time consuming. So when I had my daughter, I had all these intentions of sewing her lots of nice pretty things, but never got round to it. So anyway, it was the second birthday in June. So in May I started to panic. I'm like, oh, I've not done anything for her. In April I started to panic. Anyway, by May I'd finished a birthday present, and my husband got the sewing machine out and he went shopping, bought some beautiful fabric, backed it, hemmed all the corners. He did a brilliant job. So this huge thing is massive, and this is my daughter's blanket. So she's called Evelyn. We call her Effie, so if I ever mention Effie, it's my daughter. And I don't want to show you too closely because she's spilt God knows what on it. So she sleeps with this every night, and it's getting a bit tatty, but I like that because it's being used and it's being loved. I hope. I put this little number 2 on it for a birthday, and we put a surname in it, and we did all this kind of bunting at the bottom. Anyway, it is massive, so you can see it's huge. And if you look on my Instagram, you can see a better picture. So I finished that as well this year. So I've been sewing like a mad woman. But I've got quite a lot to show, and it's probably the first year of my entire sewing history that I've got stuff finished. So I'm dead chuffed with that. But here's the big but. I'm working on lots and lots of things at the minute as well. There's one more to show you. So I used to have an African grey parrot. It's a bit dusty, this. African grey parrot. And this was my third full coverage one that I did. Sorry about the glare. But this is Lenny. So I can do full coverage. Again, in lovely shades of black. But it's not really what I enjoy doing. And these were kind of memorial pieces. There's another big one of my nephew, but that's at his granddad's house. So a lot of my sewing got given away. I gave it away. But now I'm keeping stuff. So from here on out, I should always have something to show you. Touch wood. Okay. So right now, I'm trying to finish a little small. I'm trying to remember what it's called actually, because I've got the pattern on my phone. Here it is. It's by Wild Violet Cross Stitch, and she's got her own website. And this is Primitive Tarot Skeletons. And I'm on the third one now. So this is the Stitcher, the Ripper, and this one's going to be the Snipper. So this is just an offcut of the Bury Me fabric. So I chopped it off the bottom. Hence why the orange doesn't go all the way around. But I really like this. And it's stitched, I don't know if you can see. It's on 18 count. And I tea stained it, so shoved a load of tea bags on it. So it's a nice shade of orange. And I'm doing it with DMC 159, which is a really kind of nice shade of purple, like a mahogany purple. I don't know, I'm rubbish with my colours. But that should be finished tonight. So watch Instagram and see if I'm a woman of my word. And we'll see. The big one that I'm working on, and I've got to admit I've not worked on it since February, is what everybody's working on. And this is Pandemic. And this is by Long Dog Samplers. And I'm stitching it in kind of various shades of purple and grey. Stupid me thought, you know what, I didn't start sewing this until October last year. So I made a good go at it, and then Christmas happened, and then our New Year starts, and I didn't really get back to it. It's on my to-do list. And what I did was I reversed the pattern, so I flipped it. Because we're coming out of COVID and everything's getting brighter and more. We're coming out of a crisis basically, so I figured actually we're not in the pandemic anymore. Let's reverse it. Let's get back to normal. And lots of people use that phrase, back to normal. But I wanted to do a reverse pandemic in the hope that by the time this is finished, we might be able to put COVID behind us. But I think by the time this one's finished, I think the whole world will have forgot what COVID was, because it took me so long to do it. I absolutely love it. And there's really cute different motifs, and I'm trying to use the dark purple for the animals, and the mid purple for flowers and fruits, and really light purple for buds, and then scatter it with this grey. I do love it, and I do want to get back to it. And I think I'm on page, oh gosh, I think I'm on page 7. So it's not even halfway there yet. But I love it. I do love it. It's not a very easy one to pick up, put down, because it's so big. And I stitch in hand, so I don't use any hoops. I pull my fabric out and I hand sew. I'm not coordinated enough to do up and down. I just use one hand. So that is to do. Right, so a little while ago I said about this calendar stitch along. And all my friends are making these beautiful, little, beautiful things. But stupid me thought, no, do it as a sampler, Sarah. So my husband tried it, like I said. And it's by Joanne Jones, and it's part of the Cross Stitcher magazine. It came as the calendar, so it would have come in like December issue last year, if you're interested. So this did a stitch count on it for me, so I could kind of guess how big it was, and it's about 35,000 stitches. And stupid me thought that that was a good idea in January. But it is nearly there. Now, it has a big like stitchy quote on it. I'm working at the minute on this beehive. This is an extra one that I put in so I could balance it all out. But as you can see, we're in October now, and I have still got June, July, August, September, October, November. Oh, I've got 6 months left anyway. And there's only 2 months left of the year. So, this is my priority piece. I've kind of fell out a bit of love with it because it's backstitch. And can you see all around the border are these bees? So I've stitched all these bees and put them all in, and now they need backstitch. So I've done a grand total of 3 bees backstitch. Well, there's 80. I have high expectations of myself, but quite frankly, I really want to get it done. But whether it gets done is another question. So, we'll see. It makes me laugh because I take on these big things. And don't get me wrong, some get done. But it's the first year some have ever got done. Usually they stay like this. And then in a couple of years, I cut them up and make little things out of them and think, I'm never going to work on you again. I'm not going to do it this year. Everything I've got out is going to get finished before I pick any more up. You might all sit there and laugh at that. And you might have all had that same conversation with yourself, but we'll see. So my husband makes me these beautiful project bags as well. And this is quite a big one. But it's made of these like this beautiful fabric. It's all like pictures. My kind of thing. I think he made me a job lot because I've got so many on the go. So this is another one. Now, this is 2022 Fox and Rabbit Stitch Along. I think it's called Changing Seasons. So the first one I did it in this kind of where it got lighter to darker. So it started with a really light pink and then it went down to really dark burgundy purple. Can't remember what you call it. Ombre. So it went down. This year, I thought, oh, why not do it on the diagonal? So I've seen that there's quite a few people doing the, it's like all butterflies and bands and it goes diagonally. I think that's the right word, diagonally, that way, across, top to bottom. And it changes colour. It looks like a rainbow. I can't remember what the pattern's called, but I like that. And I thought, you know what? I'll do that. So I'll go from dark all the way across, and there's a lot of it, to light. So I put all my kind of stitch counts in so I can make sure that I was on target. And then I put all these diagonal grid lines in for myself so I could work out the colours. So this is like, I think there's 20 different colours in it that I've used to go from dark to light. Anyway, I'm 2 months behind, but this has been my pattern that I've got another daughter, so she was born last year, so I've got 2. Effie, who's 2, and Clara, who's 1. And Clara has a monthly picture with this sewing, because as this is getting full and bigger, and so is she. So if you have a look on Fox and Rabbit, you can look back at all the monthly pictures that I've took of Clara with this. So anyway, I'm 2 months behind. I've got to do October's, which has just come out, and I've got to do September's. I started September, but I messed up the colour. I don't know how, but I've got to unpick this bit. I've got to frog it. I don't like frogging. I tend to leave my mistakes in, but it's too noticeable. Like it, I don't know how I did it. So it jumps massively, whereas the rest is more subtle. So I really don't know how I've done that, but this is where it's up to, and it is a beast. I've left out the writing, so it says spring, summer, autumn, winter. I've left it out. I don't know what I'm going to do there yet, but I'm not a seasonal stitcher, so I didn't want something with the seasons written on it. I don't know what else I'm going to do with it, but I'll work it out. So that's where I'm up to with that. Next, I'm working on the 100-day sale. It's a Facebook group, and every day she releases a little bit of a pattern, and you do a little bit of a pattern every day for 100 days, and you end up with a finished piece. Now, she first did one a couple of years ago, and I did the very first one, and I kept up to date with it. And then I didn't pick any more up anyway. She's on number 10 now, so this is a 10th 100-day cycle. So I thought, you know what, I'll pick this one up and do it, and I absolutely love it because it's 10 minutes every day. That's it, and it's called No Rain. And I'll see if I can link the Facebook group up, but if I can't, just search on Facebook for 100-day cross stitch, and you'll come across it. So that's where we're up to. This is day 34, so day 35 will go here. And I love it. And what I did, you can see it's on like linen Ada, and it's really nice kind of like stripes going across it. I really like this Ada. And the first one that I did was on the same fabric. So back in the day, where I didn't know how to centre anything, you can see. Anyway, and I've crimped everything, thinking, oh, that'll stop it fraying, and it doesn't. It just makes it fray more. But this was the first 100 days, and each one is a symbol, a little pattern, and you did 100 of them. I can't remember which way it goes, but I don't think it matters. But this one now matches. I quite like things matching. I like having pairs of things. So I do that every day. I'm around day 35. So I'm very happy with that one. I don't know if I'll do the next one, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm also working on, I found it in my book, this is hexagon blackwork. Hate blackwork, but my best friend at Stitchy Club, one of my best friends, loves blackwork, and he encouraged me to do it, so I'm like, alright, I'll do it. Anyway, it turns out I helped him with his hexagon outlines. Anyway, we were working on it, and he unfortunately he developed cancer, and he died this year, quite recently actually. So what happened was I associated this piece with him, so I didn't pick it up while he was poorly. And for a few weeks after he died, I couldn't bring myself to sew on it because I knew he was doing the same one. Well then, I pulled myself out of my misery and remembered actually he would have wanted me to finish it, so I'm going to finish it. So you do 1 hexagon every week, and we're on week 37 now out of 49. I chose B colours. You'll get bored of this soon. You'll think, oh, I'm not watching her because all she talks about is sunflowers, bees and orange and black. But I do really like this. So you can see the bottom bit. And I think as I've gone along, my black work has got a bit better. So I do this every Sunday morning. And I'm nearly there. So this one finishes at the end of the year. And it's by the Steady Thread on Facebook. It's free. Anyone can join and you get all the patterns on the Facebook group. Really generous when people put patterns out that you can access like that. But what it means is they're quite affordable and you just have to worry about kitting it up, which I've got enough stash that I can pick them kind of things up and just run with them. And the nice gap fillers, so when you're working on something big, you'll put that down for a bit and you'll pick one of them up and do an hour on a different project. But know that you're making progress towards something big. And I quite like that. So that's that one. And then last, my very last project that I'm working on. This is in time out. So I keep a couple of projects in these boxes. Just because I find them quite easy to shove away when the kids are out, rather than trying to zip everything up, and I fling everything in. I just get cracking. So this is the owl forest in my garden. No, it is not called that. Of houseplants, Sal. So this was the first one, and I am missing one here, and then a top bit and a bottom bit and a bit of border. But this is like oatmeal 25 count. It's my first time ever stitching on 25 count, and I followed the measurements exactly, and I gave myself a border, and when I started stitching it, I've got like a finger at the top. So then I got dead annoyed, but I'm like, well, I'm not starting it again. I'm not. I have these conversations with my sewing. I'm not starting it again. So I carried on with it, because I'm like, well, what am I going to do with just one flower? Oh, I think I've got 3 in by the time I'd realised. What am I going to do with that? So I know I'm going to carry on with it, and it's going to be a present for somebody else. Because when I know I've gone wrong on something, and I look at it after, I get dead annoyed. So I tend to give them ones away, but the person getting them doesn't often know I've done something wrong on it. Anyway, I'm going to make it into a lovely cushion. Someone's retiring that I know, and I'm going to change it up. But I'm 2 flowers behind on this, so a month behind. And it's not because I've not had the time to do it. It's because I purposely left it, because I need to know the other flower and the size of it going that way, so I can work out the border that I've got room left to put in or not. So it's like I'm almost at standstill until I get more of the pattern. But I will get it finished, and it's Owl Forest embroidery, and it is beautiful. Absolutely really nice. Really different from what I would usually sew. And Owl Forest are pushing me to be a bit different and use a few of my colours up and not just stitch samplers. And I love it, but I need to work on it. So that's all of my sewing that I'm working on. I think it's enough for now. Like I said, there's Black Sampler November coming up, and Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery encourages us all to work on a back sampler. So hopefully Ode to Taylor Harkins by my husband will be finished started, and I'll be able to stitch a model for it. I just need to order another piece of Belfast linen. I usually tend to stitch from stash, but when it's a special piece like that, I like to treat myself to a nice new piece of fabric, if that makes sense. So I tend to bulk buy quite a bit of Ada, so I can just pick some up and go with it. But then if it's something really special and meaningful and I know it's going to be complex and take lots of work, then I'll treat myself. It warrants a bit of spending, if that makes sense. So I'm going to work on that. I'm going to finish these stitch alongs. I'm going to keep writing in my diary. And I'm going to keep watching Flosstube. Life is busy. Life is really busy with 2 little babies. And I'll insert a picture here, hopefully, of Effie and Clara. And I'm so very, very lucky that I've got my girls and my husband, and we've got a really nice family. But I get no stitching done at all with them. We take them to Stitch Club every Saturday, and if anyone from Stitch Club is watching this, they'll vouch. They don't sit still. Clara's just learnt to walk, and Effie's learnt how to boss her around. So they run riot. But they read lots of books, and they get to talk to all my friends, and it's a real community place to be. But what it means is I get no stitching done at Stitcher Club at all anymore, ever. So I end up with just all this nighttime stitching. So I'll do my work for the day and sit down, and I'll stitch frantically when the girls are asleep. Luckily enough, they're quite young, so they go to bed between 6 and 7. So you got a couple hours in, a bit of Flosstube. I usually eat tea as well at that point, if you've remembered to eat that day, and get stuff done. But like I said, stitching is a really enjoyable thing for me, and I love to talk about it, and that's why I decided to do Flosstube. There's quite a lot of Flosstube #1s that I've been watching. I think Maruma Crafts is one of them, and it's just given me a bit of confidence to tell you all about my sewing. Now, I'm not the best at editing stuff or putting pictures on, and I'll figure it out as I go along. This might be my first and my very last Flosstube, because I bet once I've watched myself back a couple of times, I won't want to watch it ever again, or do one ever again. I'm not the most eloquent speaker. I mean, I watch Hands Across the Sea and Nicola Parkman, and her voice is beautiful, and she's very, very well spoken, very polite, very eloquent, and I don't say that as in I actually really admire that quality, and I wish I was a bit more eloquent. So I hope that the way I speak and the way I go on with myself just hasn't put you off watching. I love being part of the cross stitch community, and I watch lots of Flosstubers, and I think some of my favourites are maybe not who I thought they would be. I think I've tried to watch all the big ones, all the big hitters, all the famous ones. But I think there's a couple of new ones that are emerging, so 2 eclectic stitchers, so Penny and Angie. And if you've not watched their videos, they're quite funny because they just bounce off each other really well, and yeah, it's really nice just to listen to them. I think I really enjoy watching as well Lynn, who's the Lancashire Stitcher. I think I've just started making some comments on videos. I'm not very good at commenting, but I will get a bit better. It's often because I'm watching them on TV with my stitching in hand that I don't get a chance to write anything, but I watch her because she's actually not that far from me. Lancashire, Yorkshire, Manchester. We're all touching a little bit. And she's just dead down to earth, and I quite like that. I watched the Colorado cross stitcher, Sherry. So, like I said, I got involved in sampler camp. I've got my badge and my sewing bag. And I got a whole sampler done in September. And I like to get involved in stuff where there's everybody's doing it, so you just feel motivated and you go along with the tide, if you like. So that's really good. I watched Sarah's Stitchy Spot, Stitching Moon, who's Megan, and the Country Stitchers, Liz and Deb, and of course, British, English Flosstubers. Teresa Little Stitcher, I'm sure she'll think I'm stalking her because I've been watching every single video she's ever done, and I just really like that she's just dead straight with it. And she talks about work, she talks about home, she talks about her dogs, she talks about what to do, what not to do, what she's learned. She puts all these really good videos out there that are really informative, mainly about full coverage. So a lot of information videos about full coverage, which isn't my thing, but I've still watched them. So this is what I mean. I'm not stalking you, Teresa, but I do absolutely really love the effort you put into the videos, because I love kind of just listening and stitching along with your voice, really. So thank you. Stitchman Darcy makes me laugh as well, but I like watching Lindy Stitches, Steph's videos. I think that there's lots and lots more, but Michelle at Mama Loves You GB, I think I call her a lifer because she's very good at putting videos out there, and it seems that she's just made it part and parcel of a kind of practice, if you like, as a sewer, that she does all this fantastic, amazing sewing. She runs a shop, she helps out with Fox and Rabbit linens, and she tells us about all these freebies and things like that. But that she actually does sit down every week and do these videos, and I kind of admire the woman. She's, it's impressive. I think there's a lot of impressive women on Facebook, and men. And I'm hopefully not bored you silly, because this video is a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. But thank you for watching, and please do tell me if it's too long, but because I've shown you a lot, next time there'll probably be just 5 things to show you, and I probably won't have any more finishes. But I do love my sewing, and I love watching all of you guys. So have a lovely weekend, month, year, and carry on stitching. I think it's really important that you do what you love. Alright, bye-bye. Hi guys, so I forgot to add then that I'll do a giveaway as well. So we're a really generous community, and lots of Flosstubers give away lots of things, but I'm not going to give away my own things. I'm not that daft. I'm going to give away my husband's things. So if you would like to win one of our patterns, you can, if you put the word Craven, Craven, on any of your comments below, and I'll draw a winner for the next video, and I'll drop you an email, or you can get in touch once I've announced it, and you can choose a pattern from our website, anyone that you want, and we can email it you in PDF, just as a thank you for watching and listening to me go on and make a mess of my first YouTube. Thank you, and bye bye again.